To graph secant and cosecant, we can use everything we already know about sine and cosine, and we really just have to make an adjustment at the end. So we have this 2 cosecant 4x minus 3. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So as I start out, I'm going to set everything up like I'm doing a sine graph. So this minus 3 tells us our midline is going to be down at 3. This 2 out front tells us our amplitude is going to be 2, so that means the top of the graph will be up at 1. The bottom of the graph will be down at -5. And then we have to get our period here. We use the 4 just like before. Cosecant's normal period is 2 pi. So we do 2 pi divided by 4 to find out the period of this graph will be pi over 2. There's no shift, so we know we'll start at 0. We'll end at pi over 2. Split it up just like we did before. So if we take it into fourths, pi over 2 times a fourth, it means every tick mark is going to be moving pi over 8. So we have pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, which reduces 3 pi over 8, and then pi over 2 would have been 4 pi over 8. So now we can still think about sine. We know sine normally starts in the middle, and then it goes up, comes back down, back to the middle. So just kind of mark what those points would be if we were doing the sine graph. Middle up, middle, bottom, middle. And now when we graph cosecant, the difference is anytime sine would have been the middle, well, that's when we're suddenly undefined. So that's where we're going to have these vertical asymptotes. Anytime sine hits the midline, we have a vertical asymptote. And then for the other parts of the graph, well, we know they share the top and bottom points. And then really everywhere where sine would have been is now completely blank. So the parabolas open outside. So they touch at the top, and then it opens up. Where it would have touched at the bottom, now it opens down. And there's your cosecant graph. So when you're graphing these, the only points that I really want to see are the asymptotes and then these max and min points. And then make sure you just have your parabolas opening the correct way. Essentially, they should just be opening, getting closer and closer to those asymptotes and never touching them. So those points are graphed, you're good to go. So we'll follow that same idea with secant, just this time secant goes with cosine. So after I get everything set up, I know cosine normally starts at the top, goes back down and back up, although since there's a negative, we'll start at the bottom and go up. So I'll use that to help get all my points, and then just like before, I'll adjust turning midlines into asymptotes, tops and bottoms will be the max and mins of the parabolas. So let's get us set up. This time the midline is at 0. There isn't any vertical shift. And then this 1/2 gives me my amplitude, so I know the top of my graph will be at 1/2, bottom of my graph will be at -1/2. This time we have a phase shift of right, remember it's backwards, pi over 6. So that means our first tick mark will be at pi over 6. The b value is just 1, so that means the period is the normal 2 pi, which if we divide that into fourths, it means we're moving pi over 2 each time. So this one we have to do a little bit of common denominators, a little bit of math. Remember, pi over 2 is the same as 3 pi over 6. So if we add 1, that would give us to 4 pi over 6, which is 2 pi over 3. We add again, that gets us 4 plus 3, 7 pi over 6. We add 3 pi over 6 again. That'll give us 10 pi over 6, which reduces to 5 pi over 3. And one more to get our full period in there would be 13 pi over 6. So there's our labels. We have everything accounted for. Now we just need our points. So we know cosine would normally start at the bottom, at that pi over 6 starting point. It would go to the middle, top, to the middle, to the bottom. Since we're graphing secant this time, not cosine, anytime cosine would have hit the middle, there's an asymptote. So 5 pi over 3 has another asymptote. Anytime cosine would have been on top, well, that's the bottom of one of these parabolas. Anytime would have been bottom, that's the max of one of those parabolas. And there's my secant graph. So again, I just want to see one full period of these graphs. It's okay to continue those parabolas so you can see that they do keep going. And the main points are those mins and maxes of the parabolas and then where the asymptotes hit.